Episode 10 of Wistoria ended with Will's team once again face to face with the evil Grand Duke, a monster well beyond anything that any of the students have ever experienced in the dungeon. Facing such a daunting foe, all I can wonder is if Will's team will fall back or stand and fight. Let's find out together in episode 11 of Wistoria Wand and Sword called The True Name of Cowards. As episode 11 opens, we find Will and the gang in the dungeon on the 11th floor, as the narrator explains the 1/1000th rule, which is the tower standard for determining students' credits at Regarden Magical Academy. The way that the 1/1000th rule works is a monster that's worth 1 credit is equivalent to a mage worth 1,000 credits. This means that the evil Grand Duke, a monster worth 270 credits, would equate to a mage worth 270,000 credits. Just a reminder that the 10th floor floorkeeper, known as the Luminous Nabarus, that the team was initially aiming to face off against and that they were all so nervous to face, that was only a 110 credit beast, less than half the strength of the evil Grand Duke. With all that being said, the evil Grand Duke attacks. Everyone dives out of the way, escaping the largest blast just in time, but the team seems to be off balance and unprepared for the next attack. Will yells to Lihana, trying to get their team to fall back so that they can all survive this encounter, and Lihana leads the team down a corridor as Wignall, close behind, stops to block the path of the evil Grand Duke with elven illusion magic. Wignall covers the area with massive trees, but the Grand Duke tears through them instantly, as if they were twigs, and continues his offensive. The Grand Duke goes to strike Wignall with a finishing blow, and if not for Will, he would have succeeded. Will swoops in and saves Wignall, and they manage to escape into a dungeon corridor before the ceiling comes crashing down on top of them. As Will and Wignall catch up to their team, Colette asks what this monster is, and Will, ever the book learner, tells them that he has read about this monster before. Will explains that this is an evil Grand Duke, the peak of evil monsters. This monster spawns on the 25th floor and can command other monsters. Julius asks how a level 25 monster managed to make its way to the 10th floor, and Lihana, thinking on the issue, suggests that it has to do with the mages, Mars and Headless, that they had recently came across. That doesn't matter at the moment though, as the team hides from the monsters that the evil Grand Duke has sent to search for them. Fear is spreading through the team, as between the monsters hunting for them and the evil Grand Duke, most are afraid that they are trapped down here. However, Will does not let despair seep in, as he tells his team that they need to fight to survive this. Will explains that the evil Grand Duke is the head of the monsters, and with him gone, a pathway to their escape should open up. Julius, the Ice Wielder, is naturally against this plan, as he doesn't believe that the 6 of them have enough strength to take down the evil Grand Duke. As Julius complains, Wignall jumps in and tells Julius that he trusts Will in his plan, and that Will is worthy of his faith. Colette and Scion also jump in, agreeing with Will and wanting to join the fight. Even Lihana admits that although Will was brought there as their shield, she can very easily see him as their leader. Lihana tells Will to give them his order and they will follow his lead. Julius, still annoyed that everyone is going along with Will's plan, suggests that Will is a failure, and as a failure, Will's plan will fail as well. And Will agrees, letting Julius know that they are going to need Julius's help as the key to making his plan successful. Will asks Julius to help them, and in return, Will tells Julius that he's willing to tell him a secret to one of Elfie's signature spells. From here, we push forward as the battle begins. Will uses himself as bait and runs in order to get Duke into position. As the evil Grand Duke lands below Julius and Colette, he begins his attack, shooting a blast from his mouth at the two, who manage to dodge just in time. The Grand Duke continues his assault, blasting at everything he sees. While he does this, Julius begins casting a spell. Duke goes to attack Julius, only to end up having crushed an ice clone of Julius's, and as the smoke clears, multiple other Julius's can be seen continuing to cast the spell. While this is happening, we flash back to Will and Julius discussing Elfie's Arch Vice. Will tells Julius that Elfie's Arch Vice clones can keep an incantation going. Usually, when casting a spell gets interrupted, the spell won't activate. But Arch Vice found a loophole to this, since the next clone can pick up the incantation where the last clone left off. This way, even if one clone gets destroyed, the next clone can pick up the spell where the last one left off, meaning the spell will still be able to be activated in the end. This is extremely helpful when casting advanced spells with longer incantations. Returning to the present battle, Julius is continuing to cast Arch Vice. Will directs the rest of the team to cast low-level spells as distractions to cover Julius. Wignall, Colette, and Scion attack the Grand Duke, doing no damage to the monster, but angering it greatly. The evil Grand Duke goes to attack the three students, but before he can get close to them, Will deals another attack to the monster from above. At the same time, Will notes that the Grand Duke's wings are impenetrable and that no magic or physical attacks will break through. This means Will's attack did no damage to Duke either. None of that matters to Will though, since he and his other team members are only acting as decoys while Julius readies his attack. As the decoy team members stay back, Julius casts his biggest, last-ditch spell on the evil Grand Duke. Once the smoke clears, however, we can see that the Grand Duke has blocked Julius's spell, with only a few ice shards having penetrated his back. Luckily for everyone involved, Will has planned for this scenario as a just-in-case. Lihana and Will, having previously discussed what Lihana would do if Julius's plan failed, begins to implement their backup plan. As the evil Grand Duke blocks Julius's ice attack, Will yells for Lihana, and without a second's hesitation, Lihana casts her spell, Lizolda Duel Algis, before blazing at lightning speeds towards the evil Grand Duke, aiming for its heart. Lihana reaches Duke, and with all her might, she attacks. But Lihana is stopped in her tracks, realizing that a remote auto barrier has been placed on this monster well before this fight occurred. With Lihana in such close range and Duke readying his next attack, Will steps in to save Lihana's life. As Will tries to escape with Lihana, the evil Grand Duke's attacks become so intense that Will calls on Kiki, his familiar, to help block some of the attacks as they retreat. Sadly, Kiki fails to block all of the attacks as one makes its way through, breaking the goggles that Will received from Elfie years ago. As the action heats up, we glide our way over to Professor Werkner and Professor Edward, flying through the dungeon on a Sky Racer dragon. Professor Edward is watching the battle against the evil Grand Duke unfold on Professor Werkner's crystal, the one directly connected to Kiki's forehead. Werkner wonders how a Grand Duke could have ended up so many floors away from where it should be, but Edward tells him to worry about it later and to focus on getting to the students. But speaking of the students, they are not doing okay. Will, directly after his goggles break, protects Lihana and takes a direct hit from the evil Grand Duke, leaving him unresponsive on the ground. As the team comes to check on Will and Lihana, Will is completely out of it. Colette keeps shaking Will, telling him to snap out of it, but Will does not seem to be processing anything that's happening right now. On top of this, the evil Grand Duke is not letting up. As Duke tears through ice, trying to make his way to the team to continue his attack, Lihana tells her teammates to grab Will and get out of there, and that she'll hold off the evil Grand Duke, giving them time to escape. Wignall swiftly declines Lihana's suggestion, letting Lihana know that he will be staying with her. As she asks why Wignall would opt to stay with her, Wignall reminds Lihana that she is the only human that he truly respects. That is before he gained his newfound respect for Will, of course. But either way, it is Wignall's respect for Lihana that is his reason for wanting to stay by her side in this battle. It's at this point that Lihana and Wignall take off running towards the evil Grand Duke, leaving the rest of their team behind to determine what their next steps are going to be. Lihana, making it to the Grand Duke first in a flash of lightning, attacks Duke head-on. As Lihana gets knocked back, Wignall runs in and engulfs the Grand Duke in a tornado before tying down the monster's arms with trees. As the evil Grand Duke is held in place by the tree limbs, Lihanna speeds back in, attempting another killing blow to the beast's chest. Before contact can be made, though, the Grand Duke, with a roaring scream, blows back Lihanna, while at the same time freeing himself from the trees that were holding him down. During this intense battle, as Lihanna and Wignall are being pushed back and knocked down by the Grand Duke, Will, still broken and on the ground, calls out to Scion, crying and begging Scion to punch him. Scion, not understanding in the least, turns to face Will, at which point Will tells Scion that the goggles that Elfie gave to Will are broken and he can't stop shaking. Will continues, telling Scion that he is terrified and can't do this without those goggles. Scion, promptly going into a rage, yells at Will for being the one to get them all into this battle. Scion grabs Will, throws him to the ground, and begins to beat the ever-loving crap out of Will, crying at the same time, telling Will that they are all going to die in the dungeon because of him. As Scion goes in for one more punch to Will's face, Will stops Scion's hand with his own and thanks Scion, letting him know that Scion's actions helped Will to stop shaking. Will then shakily stands, grabbing his sword before running to help Lihanna and Wignall. This makes Scion believe that Will sitting in front of him scared was an act on Will's part. However, Colette clears the air, detailing the fact that Will is afraid now and in every fight he faces. Mages have wands where they can cast spells from longer distances, but Will faces every fight that he enters with a sword, up close and face to face with every monster, no matter how much bigger or stronger they are than him. Colette tells Scion to put himself in Will's shoes and then say that that's not scary. Continuing on, Colette says that Will is just a simple coward, but to everyone else, they call that courage. Walking past Scion, Colette tells him that she is going to join the battle with Will as well. And just in time too, since Lihanna and Wignall are both down and out of the fight at the moment, leaving everything to Will and Colette. As Will runs in, trying to find a way to break the Grand Duke's defenses, he comes to the conclusion that they need to cut off the evil Grand Duke's protective wings in order to stand a chance against him. Colette jumps in, aiming a pebble shot earth magic attack at the Grand Duke as a distraction for Will. And as the battle rages on, Will laments over the fact that his goggles were his own personal armor, and without them, he is extremely afraid and having trouble thinking straight. And although Will is afraid and fairly overwhelmed in this moment, he decides that losing someone that he cares about scares him even more than anything else. With that, Will leaps back into action. The evil Grand Duke, taking notice of Will, sends a massive attack in Will's direction. Will manages to jump above the attack, calling out to Colette for assistance. And Colette, understanding Will's request, calls out a spell, Luar Seek Galter, which creates a massive sword in the air for Will. Will, from up above the evil Grand Duke, is able to strike straight down at the monster, completely slicing off one of the Grand Duke's wings and sending the beast into a rage. Duke begins to blindly lash out at the entire dungeon floor. Just as Duke does this, Scion enters the chat from above Duke, riding his flaming bird and reciting a spell. Duke spots Scion and begins to shoot blasts up at him, but Scion is able to escape while still incanting. Duke, shooting blast after blast, eventually hits Scion's flaming bird, not realizing that Scion's true intention was to use his bird to get close to the Grand Duke. And as Scion reaches the beast, he hits the Grand Duke with a point-blank fire spell, monologuing that there is nothing that a cowardly laggard like Will can do that he can't. As the fire spell, Inflamme Bordelion hits the Grand Duke, a huge cloud of smoke ensues. Will tries to peek through the smoke, but there is no need as the evil Grand Duke, with one swift motion, clears out the smoke, showing no additional damage having occurred to him. Scion, having been blown onto his butt by the Grand Duke, is staring on in fear, thinking about how a wand isn't going to be enough to take on this monster. At the same time, Will is thinking about the fact that a sword can't slay the monster either. With everyone deep in thought, trying to figure out what to do next, a large crystal randomly lands directly in front of Will. As Will stares at the crystal, high up in the background, Will's roommate Rossi can be seen watching Will, wanting Will to try to remember that this is wand and sword. This ends up prompting a flashback where a woman holds a young child. The man with her asks the woman if she's sure about her choice, and she shuts him down swiftly, telling the man to stop asking. She reminds him that her choice is for the sake of protecting this world, and that one day, wand and sword will join as one. Meanwhile, in the present, something clicks for Will. He takes the crystal and begins running towards his sword, yelling for Scion to help him by providing Will with magic so that he can combine wand and sword. It's easy to tell that Scion is confused, but he launches a magical spell, Ignis Rux, towards Will. Once the spell reaches Will somehow, from the looks of it, begins taking the spell into his sword. Will's entire team is stunned, not one of them having ever seen anything like this. Everyone is wondering if this is a spell or if Will's blade consumed the spell, but no one has a real answer as they continue to watch in awe. And Will, also not knowing what's happening to him, says that in this moment, his eyesight went red and strength welled up inside of him. And before he knew it, he invoked the spell's name, attacking the evil Grand Duke while yelling it out, Ignis Vis. With one mighty slash invoking Ignis Vis, Will slices the Grand Duke in half. With that final exceptional slash by Will, episode 11 of Wistoria, Wand and Sword comes to a close. This is easily the most action-packed episode of the season. We get to see everyone use some of their current strongest spells. Julius learned and used a more advanced form of one of Elfie's spells, and Scion is starting to find strength through his rivalry with Will. I was locked in for every heart-pounding second of the action. But my favorite part of the episode by far was watching Will come into power that's completely new to him. But at the same time, maybe not so new? I have a lot of questions about that. Like when Rosti wants Will to remember what? And what does Rosti have to do with Will remembering? What does this power mean for Will? Why aren't there 100 more episodes? There are so many more questions I have, but I'll save them for another video. But what did you think of the episode? With only one episode left in the season, do you think we will get answers to any of these questions? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this recap, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all for episode 12.